And I thought Darth Maul being alive was shocking. This is Bad Batch. In this episode of the Clone Wars, we are once again in the middle of a heated battle. The show loves to open with that whenever they're starting an arc, I noticed. But anyway, they're in the middle of this battle on the planet Anaxis, which is an EU planet making its debut in the Clone Wars. And they're in the middle of a heated battle with Admiral Trench, who once again returns. And they're losing battles big time, like they're getting creamed. And Rex eventually comes to the conclusion that they must have gotten their hands on this algorithm Rex developed to identify like the clones' weaknesses to help improve themselves in battle. So they head out to a command station to retrieve the algorithm. And in order to get it in there, because it's really entrenched far into Separatist territory, so they need some help. They need a special team who's good at getting in and out. So Commander Cody calls in the Bad Batch, which are these genetically mutated clones, like, because they realize, and this is a really cool tie back in, because in Season 3, we met this, early on in Season 3, we met this clone named 99, who was this deformed clone who inspired, I forget which clone it was, but one of the clones to not give up on the training. And so they realized, wow, these genetic clones, mutated clones, are actually useful for something. So they decided to encourage and experiment with mutations, and they got Bad Batch, which are clones that have unique personalities from the get-go. These aren't like clones that just naturally develop some sort of personality. These are clones that have unique personalities. And they go with Rex and Cody. They head to the outpost. And then they learn that the algorithm, the Separatists, are getting it from Echo. Echo himself is alive, transmitting it from this planet called Sheka Minor. And that's where the episode ends. And yeah, it would have been, had this show not been canceled, first off, this would have been the opener to Season 7 of the Clone Wars had the show not been canceled, and I'll tell you how I know that in a bit. But had the show not been canceled, this would have been, not only would it have been a really great opener to the season, but it would have been, seems like it would have been a really fun and unique arc all around. So anyway, so before I get into it, I just want to quickly talk about how I know this arc was for Season 7. So, again, I'm going to put a link to where you want to skip ahead if you want to know where I'm talking about the episode, because I need to go into a bit of background first. So, about a year and a half ago, Rebel Force Radio, I think it was Rebel Force Radio, they did a podcast interview with one of the writers of Clone Wars, Brent Friedman, and he talked a bit about his time on Clone Wars, and one of the things he talked about was that he had written 4 arcs for the Clone Wars, one of which was the Season 4 arc where Obi-Wan goes undercover. The next one he wrote was for Season 5, which was the Droids arc, and he mentioned that his favorite thing that he wrote was written for Season 6, but was moved to Season 7, and he was told it would have been the opener to Season 7. I'm going to try and find a link to that podcast, so if you're curious to listen to it, you can. But he said that was his favorite thing he wrote. And his biggest regret was not being able to see that story come to life. And that story, of course, and anyway, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But anyway, so I heard this podcast, and obviously I was like, really? Like, oh man, like, wow, I'm sure this arc would have been amazing. But I don't know if it would have been amazing, but point is, here's this really wonderful story that we were never going to get to see. So I browsed around Twitter and found Brent Friedman on Twitter, and I saw that he was pretty responsive to Clone Wars fans on Twitter, so I tweeted him, what's this arc you're regretful about? And he told me Rex was going to lead this experimental and unorthodox group of clones known as Bad Batch. I'm like, ah! So, but first off, it was really nice of him, I mean, to do it. I mean, Brent's one of those writers that really has fun with the fans. So, for like the next year, I was like tweeting at him, like sending him all these questions, like, because I knew I couldn't ask really deep questions, because obviously he didn't want to give it away, but like, there were all these little questions I was asking, like, and I just was so, like, wanting to know about this arc, and now finally, this arc gets released, and first off, Brent Friedman, if you're watching this, I just want to say congratulations on finally getting your arc released out there. And second, yes, this arc is amazing. It is truly wonderful. So it would have been a really great opening to the arc. But and in case you're wondering, the other arc Brent wrote for this Clone Wars was for season 8. It was the Top Gun arc that Filoni mentioned at the Untold Clone Wars. So yeah. And I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. So I should probably get back to talking about the episode now. So once again, the highlight of these clones arcs are the clones themselves and the relationship between them, and yeah. Highlight the I just lost my train of thought. Did I mention how excited I was when this arc got released? Anyway, sorry, I'm sounding like a really hyper fan, baby. So the highlight of clone arcs is usually the clones themselves and the dynamic. With the Utapau arc, all the way going back to Rookies, it's always been about the dynamic between the clones and the relationship, and this arc is no exception. And it's interesting because we have two groups of clones. We have the orthodox clones and who go vary by the book, and the unorthodox clones. So we have this very fun dynamic in terms of tactics of how do we do this. And do we go in guns blazing, or do we take a step back? The Rex's group is usually used to strategy, and the Bad Batch arc is used to guns blazing. And this kind of reminds me of Umbara because General Krell had this whole, like, plow forward strategy, which led to destruction, and except Krell was generally trying to get them killed, whereas these guys, Bad Batch, they actually are smart enough and tactical enough to do this, which kind of begs the question why they didn't just send Bad Batch to Umbara, but they probably didn't think of it when they were writing it, and I love the various tactical debates like the clones have with each other, and more importantly, I love how they don't dwell on it, because, like, usually there's this argument cliche of how that they don't learn to work, they get into a heated argument, and they don't work together, and they're like, now look what you did! No, look what you did! And it goes on, and then I like how we get a bit of that here, but they don't dwell on it too much, they don't drag it out, they don't move it on. There's a bit of it, but they quickly move past it. Like, the clone's like, break it up, we're on the same side. And, I mean, it might not be completely resolved, I mean, it might come up in later episodes. We'll have to wait and see, but if this is the last of it, kudos to Brent for just not dwelling on it. And I also like how it worked past. I mean, there was, like, it wasn't so much that one's right and one's wrong. So one's used to doing things one way, and the other's used to doing things another way. And they do see that, and I do like how Rex sort of sees, like, there's a place for them. Like, he sees, wow, like, these guys, there's guns blazing strategy is actually pretty useful and works. And he learns from it later on when he's like, okay, we're actually going to do a guns blazing strategy here. So I like how he learned something, and from the quote of this episode, and I know the quote for this episode says, the battles live on, thank you Clone Wars fans, but in one of the many tweets I tweeted Brent, I asked him to tell me the quotes to the episodes, and very nicely he responded, and the quote for this episode is, the best defense is a strong offense, which is clearly what Rek learned from here, and based on the quote for the next episode, I haven't seen the next episode yet, so I don't know what the quote is, but the quote, what Brent told me the quote was, is wars are not won with superior weapons, but with superior strategy. So I'm guessing in that episode they're going to come across a situation where going in guns blazing isn't going to work, and they're going to have to use Rex's strategy of, you know, just outsmarting the Separatists and not going in guns blazing, like taking the laid-back approach. So they're going to learn something from Rex, I'm guessing. And if they do that, that will be clever, because they'll show that there's a time and place for each strategy. There's a time for doing it Bad Batch's way, and there's a time for doing Rex's way. It's not each strategy is not necessarily right or wrong. There's pros and cons to each kind of tactic. And, I mean, I don't know if they're going to go through that, but if they do go through that, I will love that. Like that. Go through that. It'll just really make it great writing. I mean, if not, still probably will be great, but that would just be a really cool thing to do. And the highlight of this arc is the Bad Batch. They are, oh my gosh, like, they are so much fun. Like, I'm so glad, this is probably why, I'm so glad we got this through the rough cut if we were going to get it through some alternative medium and not, like, a comic or a novel, because, like, again, the voice acting adds so much here, and D. Bradley Baker does incredible voice work. Like, these characters have such fun, unique, and distinct personalities. Like, you can clearly tell these clones apart, not just in the awesome designs they have in their armors or skills, but just the way Dee's delivering all the voices. Like, you have the bulky clone who's like, rah, rah, rah. And then there's, like, the very nasal voice he's doing for the really smart one, the really crass and tough voice he's doing for the sniper one, and I just love all these variations. He's doing, because Dee's basically doing the same voice for all the clones, he's just doing slightly different variations of it, and ironically enough, in the last arc Brent wrote, the Droid Zone, he had to do another variation with the clone, with Gregor. And this kind of reminded me of Team Fortress 2, where you have all these different classes. You have your sniper, you have your heavy, you have your medic. Like, all these different traits. And, again, just hearing the voices, hearing the Bad Batch play off each other, hearing them play off the clones, it was so much fun. Like, these are such fun characters. And, honestly, I'm glad that they aren't just limited to this arc, because these are so much fun, like, freaking genius! Yeah, and I'm just looking at my notes here to see what else I have to say. That's all I have to say as far as the story goes. The action is really good. I mean, even the rough cut, it still looks really good. Like, it definitely seems like with Season 7, the show would have really stepped up its action. I mean, there's some really good action. I mean, this is another battle-heavy arc, so it looks like we were going to get a lot of large-scale battles. I mean, the massive scale of the planet. We have, like, swarms of battle droids coming in. Like, just huge battles. And it's a shame this episode wasn't... It's a huge shame that this episode wasn't complete and that wasn't animated. I'm grateful we got it. I mean, I'm really ecstatic, but it's clearly one of those where there was a visual aspect that we're kind of losing just simply because, again, it's in rough cut. So they had these huge, large-scale battles that would have probably looked really cool, and they're in rough cut. Like, there's all these amazing shots. Like, there's, like, when Bad Batch is taking the outpost, which, by the way, like, I'm pretty sure they reused that outpost in Rebels, like it's the one Ezra's in, and the communications tower they take later on. It has a very similar layout, but it's a lot more simplified for Rebels in the Macquarie arc. But there's this really nice shot where they come to the elevator and they're all just standing there in a circle around a pose, and it's just, like, so cool. And then also when they're raiding, like, the communication station where they learn that Echo's alive, there's this... I just lost my train of thought. There's this but when they're going into the station where they learn that Echo's alive, there's this really cool tracking shot which follows them all the way through the building and into the room where they get Echo's signal. And it's a really cool shot. Like, it really feels like the animators were really starting to push themselves in this point. Unfortunately, they never got to do it, but still cool to see what they were going to do. Also, it was cool to see an Axis here. Not just see an Axis. I mean, this is a planet, I might have mentioned this earlier, but it's a planet from the expanded universe, and Filoni's always one of those people who really likes to bring stuff in from the expanded universe, so it was really cool to see that this planet would have made it in. And it's a planet that looked really nice. Like, I mean, it's hard to tell what the backgrounds would look like in rough cut, but it really seems like the planet would have looked really beautiful had it been complete. I mean, there's these large shots just showing, like, the landscape, and oh my gosh, it probably would have looked beautiful. And it was also just really cool to see, because we got to see an Axis in Rebels, like, a bit of it. Like, there was that hangar base area that we're in, and it was cool to see that used, like, back when it was up and running. I mean, I know it was made for Clone Wars first, and they recycled it for Rebels, but still really cool, and it's also a nice tie-in. I'm trying to think what else. But yeah, massive scale in this, from the armies to the landscapes, and And it was just cool to see that there was more to the plan of an Axis than what we saw in Clone Wars. Not Clone Wars, Rebels. So yeah, really great start to Season 7. Like, I can see why they put this arc in the start of Season 7 instead of, like, putting, like, the Utapau arc or something. Because this is just a really fun way to kick off the season. And just, this might be one of the best arcs they've ever done. We'll have to wait and see. There's still 4 more episodes left. Already, this is, like, I'm enjoying this way more than the Utapau arc. Now, the Utapau arc was a lot of fun, but this just seems really special. And my only concern going forward is it seems like this is going to be a very battle-focused, action-heavy arc, and I'm worried, is there going to be enough story to carry it for 4 episodes? We'll have to wait and see. And even so, and also these episodes are just so meaty and dense. Like, they cram, I forgot, after watching Rebels where, like, the stories are very, it's targeted for younger audience, the stories are very simplistic, it's a lot more fast-pacing. It's just amazing just how much they cram into these 20-minute episodes. So yeah, that's all I have to say. I exhausted my notes for now. I'm going to do these episodes individually and just to savor the Clone Wars. And also, there's a lot of stuff in each one. And keep in mind, I am a student in college. I have finals coming up, so I might not be able to get these vlogs out consistently, but I'm going to try and do them. But I'm curious to hear what you think. Please leave your thoughts on specifically this episode. Don't comment on the others below. Like, dislike, subscribe. Don't spoil the remaining episodes for me if you've seen them. I want you to get my natural reaction. Always like, dislike, comment, subscribe. And this is JStars360, and may the Force be with you as it clearly is with Bad Batch. Until next time, take care.